This is Dr. Carroll, and this is another video in the Python file series. And as a reminder, there's 4 steps to use a file. Open the file, verify that the file opened successfully, read from or write to the file, close the file. This video is about step 3, about reading from a file. Now there are 3 main methods that we can use: read, readline, and readlines. And so that'll provide the framework for this video. And all of these are file object methods, and as such will only work if the file has been opened successfully, hence the importance of step 2. So let's start off with talking about read. What read does is it returns the entire contents of the file as one string. And so what it will do, it will return an empty string if all of the file has already been read. So if we've already read the whole file, if this is a second call to read, or we've read it through other means, then it's going to just return an empty string to let us know that it's done. It optionally takes an argument to read up to a certain amount of bytes. Let's see an example here. So, and I thought, oh, I could just call read, but why don't we have it do something interesting? So let's have it count the number of lines in a file. I do that all the time. And so, so we have our 4 steps here: open the file, verify that the file opened successfully, read from and write to the file, and close the file. So let's import sys. Let's get a file name from the user. Let's open it in read mode, and then let's open it up. Oh, now we need to verify it opened successfully, so we need to put that in a try except statement. And now the interesting part, step 3, let's read. And read is a method, so it's a dot read, and it's a method on a file object, the same file object that we got from open. And so that's going to read the entire contents of the file as a string. Well, now that we've done that, it's going to return the entire file as a string, and so we need to save that. And I chose the entire file contents variable as the name. Okay, so now that we've done that, we then can close the file. And now let's think, how could we determine the number of lines? Well, it's all one big string, so we could just use the string method count and say, hey, how many new lines are there? And have it count that, because it's all in one string. And we can report that. Now some of you might be saying, well, wait, hold on. What if the file doesn't have any new lines in it? It's just one big line, then it'll return 0. Okay, so we can check if at the very end of this big string, potentially, that if it ends with a new line, if it's false, then we'll just increase the count, because that effectively is another line. Okay. All right, let's execute this script and see what happens. Okay, please enter a file name. Let's use the info.txt, the one with 2 lines from the write video. Yes, it has 2 lines. Now, what if we did read example.python? Okay, it's just a file. It's right there. It's a little meta, but it has 30 lines. And there we go. We can see that it is counting up the number of lines, and to be able to do that. And we could check that with the built-in Unix command to read lines. Sure enough, 2 and 30. Yay, it worked. Okay. Now let's talk about read line, singular. And what read line does is it will return 1 line at a time. And now, to be clear, it includes the new line. Okay? It'll read up to a new line, and then it will it'll include that in what it returns. But it'll return an empty string if all the file has been read. And now, a key point in talking about reading from files, and it also applies to writing to files, is the read position, also referred to in some texts as the read marker. And what this is it indicates the location in the file where the next read will start. And so the file object has this in it. It's storing it, among other things. What is the file? Where's the read position? And things like that, to keep track of all of that. So we don't have to worry about it, but it's helpful to say, okay, as we read through a file, where is the read position or the read marker? Sometimes even the read position marker. Let's see an example. Okay, let's read line example here. Here's our 4 steps. And so let's open the info file from the right video. We're going to open it up. We need to verify that it opens successfully, so we put it in a try block and have an accept block. And now we want to read from it. So here we have our file object .readline, and it's going to read a single line. And if you remember from the right video, on the first line was a name. On the second line was something amazing. And then let's call it again, because remember, we just saw that it only has 2 lines. So let's illustrate what happens if you do an extra read line. And then we're done with the file, so let's close it. Okay, now let's display what we retrieved from the file. So the name, and I'm going to do string concatenation here so we can control the spacing. And notice I've put double quotes directly around the variable. Okay, so while there's spaces here, this is just white space, and it's not. Python would do this, wouldn't care if we remove those. And so we're going to have name colon space quote, whatever's in the name line, variable quote. Okay, so, and really that is to show where the new lines are. Okay, and then what is very commonly done with after reading new line is a call to rstrip. And so we'll take that name line and we'll call rstrip. And then if you'll remember, this is a string method. If you remember, if we don't provide any arguments to it, it will remove all contiguous white space off of the right hand side. And you're going to see that that's going to be a new line. And then what we do is we just assign it back to the same variable again. And we're going to do the same thing with the amazing line, and we'll do it with the empty line, even though it's empty, just to show that. And then we'll have a header, and then we'll just call the exact same 3 print lines to show that. Okay, let's see this one execute now. Python read line example. Okay, so with the new lines, notice it read Dr. Carroll, new line, because the quotes here are showing, remember, let me flip back. Remember, we have name colon space quote, the variable quote. So the quotes are showing that what's highlighted in blue here, which includes the new line, is all part of that. That's what we get out of readline. Same thing here with that amazing line. It was a wonderful 2 years. And then the empty line, notice there's nothing in here. It's an empty string because we had already read all the file. It said, do you want me to read? I don't have anything here. Remember, it reads up to the new line. And so if it can't find a new line, it's going to return nothing. And so that's how we know we're done reading a file, is if it returns an empty string. Now, let's, after the call to rstrip, oh, sure enough, now it cleaned it up. And now we don't have the new lines in the variable. And this was empty before. It removed any and all white space, which was none. And so it's still empty. Okay, one more to go. All right, read lines. What it does is it returns a list of strings, okay? So it's a list. Now you might be asking, well, what if it's empty? What if we've already read the entire file? Well, then it will return an empty list. as illustrated here, just brackets, square brackets, if we've already read the whole file. And again, this is going to update the read position to the very end of the file after we read it. All right, let's look at an example. Here we're going to import sys for exit. We're going to just hard code the file name to be letters.txt. That just has a letter, each letter of the alphabet on its own line. And we're going to open that in read mode. And so let's open up the file. Let's verify that it opened correctly. And now let's read all the lines of that file that's associated with the file object, or yes. And let's store that in the list of lines. Just to be clear that we're talking about a list, we have all the lines as lists. And now we're done with the file, so let's close it. Notice we're closing it before we do anything else. We're done with it, so close it. Now let's loop through each line. It's a list, so we can easily do that. And so we have our list here, and let's have our loop variable be line. And let's display the line number. And now let's control the spacing here. And so let's make it an F string. So let's put our counter in here, so it'll count at 1, 2, 3. We're not starting at 0 because these aren't indices. These are line numbers. And so line numbers start at 1 typically. And so now to control that, we're going to add in a format specifier. We're going to say, hey, we want two placeholders. And if there aren't two, then put a leading 0. That's what the 0 does. And then let's display the line exactly as it is. And as you can see from the comment, this is going to include the new line. So just like with readline, readlines adds in a new line at it includes the new line every time. So let's not have it display the new line here. And then let's increase our counter and to display that. Okay. All right, so let's see this one. Python read lines example. Sure enough, look at that. There's the contents A, B, C, D, and notice if it's only 1 digit wide, then it's going to put a 0 in there, and so that everything lines up pretty. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Sure enough, here's the contents of the letters.txt file. That's it for this video. Check out my other videos in the Python files series.